This chapter feels like a controlled explosion waiting to tear everything apart. JUJUTSU Kaisen Modulo Chapter 16 wastes no time, immediately revealing the cursed techniques of Maru and Kurosu while pushing the conflict to a terrifying new level. The narrative quickly shifts its focus to the 10 Shadows technique, the legendary inheritance of the Zenin clan, an ability feared as much as it is revered. From this foundation, Mahoraga reemerges not merely as a summoned entity, but as an uncontrollable force of destruction, a Shikigami that evolves mid-battle and turns adaptation itself into a weapon. At the same time, another decisive clash unfolds. Maru's confrontation with Tsurugi exposes the brutal contrast between cursed energy amplification and heavenly restriction, forcing Maru to question both his strength and his identity as a warrior. As Mahoraga continues to adapt and the city collapses under the weight of impossible power, the story makes one thing clear. This is no longer a battle of raw strength. It is a race toward inevitability, where survival depends on who runs out of options first, and who is destined to be sacrificed as the conflict moves closer to its end. Oh yeah, so we can keep interacting and making the anime storytelling world even more fun together. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and drop your thoughts in the comments to keep the vibe going. Alright guys, let's jump straight into the discussion. Let's go. JUJUTSU Kaisen Modulo Chapter 16 is absolutely brutal. This chapter finally reveals the cursed techniques of Maru and Kurosu, while showcasing just how insane the conflict has become. Without wasting time, the story immediately dives into an explanation of the 10 Shadows technique, the legendary inherited technique of the Zenin clan, one of the 3 ancient great clans. The 10 Shadows technique uses shadows as a medium to summon Shikigami. However, due to how dangerous it is, the Gojo clan classified it as a forbidden technique. As a result, Yuka is only allowed to use limited Shikigami abilities without fully manifesting their true forms. This explanation leads directly to Mahoraga, the divine general of the 8-handled sword Divergent Sila, regarded as the greatest treasure of the Zenin clan. Mahoraga is a Shikigami that no sorcerer in history has ever successfully tamed, except for Raiman Sukuna while inhabiting Fushiguro Megumi's body. In practice, Mahoraga can only be summoned through a merciless exorcism ritual, one that forces everyone involved to fight to the death, including the user. At present, the 2 participants in this ritual are Okatsu Yuka and Dabura. The story then returns to the current battlefield, where Mahoraga is shown already pierced by countless blades of light. It is revealed that Yuka is now in a state of delayed death, and the ritual will not end until one of 2 conditions is met. Either Dabura is killed or Mahoraga is destroyed. Once either happens, Yuka's death becomes inevitable. The tension peaks when the wheel above Mahoraga's head completes a full rotation. The effect is immediate. Dabura's light swords begin shattering one after another. Dabura notices the change just in time and narrowly survives Mahoraga's sudden high-speed assault. The attacks continue relentlessly. Although Dabura manages to block a kick, the sheer force sends him flying backward, forcing him to crash through a building just to stop his momentum. Mahoraga attempts to reposition behind Dabura, but the move is countered. Dabura reactivates his light technique and unleashes a massive scale attack, a colossal explosion of light that towers over the surrounding buildings. Despite its overwhelming power, Mahoraga only loses one arm and part of its chest. The wheel turns once more, signaling something terrifying. Mahoraga is continuing to adapt to Dabura's attacks. The onslaught doesn't stop there. Dabura hurls chunks of collapsed buildings at Mahoraga, but instead of being crushed, Mahoraga catches the debris and pulverizes it with raw strength. At this moment, Dabura begins to understand the true nature of his opponent. Mahoraga is not merely a spiritual being. Though it resembles a cursed entity, in reality, it functions more like an almost indestructible combat puppet, a killing machine that fights in place of its sorcerer. The question now is whether Mahoraga still has other abilities it has yet to reveal. The battle intensifies as Mahoraga and Dabura clash head-on once again. In an instant, Mahoraga moves to circle its opponent, but Dabura is ready. He summons multiple orbs of light that float around his body. This marks a moment of dominance for Dabura, as the upper half of Mahoraga's body is completely obliterated. For the time being, Dabura appears to have the absolute advantage. But once again, the wheel turns. As Mahoraga's body nearly finishes regenerating, Dabura launches another assault, grabbing the wing-like structure on Mahoraga's head and stomping on its face while activating his light technique once more. The attack severely damages Mahoraga again, but the side effects are devastating. The light energy spreads across the city, destroying building after building and pushing the scale of destruction completely out of control. Amid the ruins, Dabura reaches a disturbing realization. Mahoraga is becoming accustomed to all of his techniques. Each rotation of the wheel brings faster regeneration and more complete adaptation. This fight is no longer about who is stronger. It is about who will run out of options first. It is explained that one of the most dangerous treasures of the Zenin clan is Mahoraga, the divine general of the eight-handled sword. Its core ability is utterly insane. It can adapt to any phenomenon and then retaliate with a lethal counterattack. However, the battle between Mahoraga and Dabura is temporarily set aside as the story shifts back to the duel between Maru and Tsurugi, who have already been clashing blades. Tsurugi is clearly shocked to discover that Maru is highly skilled with his sword, something he never expected. Maru then explains that the sword belongs to Cross. As Maru reactivates its power, Tsurugi attempts to disrupt his attack rhythm. But Maru moves swiftly, shifts his position, and swings his blade towards Tsurugi's back, aiming to end the fight in one strike. Unfortunately, the attack is blocked with ease. At that moment, Maru begins to understand the truth. Because of his heavenly restriction, Tsurugi has discarded cursed energy entirely in exchange for overwhelming physical abilities. This fact becomes painfully clear once Maru fights him directly. In an instant, many of Maru's lingering questions are answered, especially as he recalls Yuka's earlier words about Tsurugi. The story then breaks down the fundamental difference between power amplification through energy and physical heavenly restriction. Because Tsurugi possesses almost no energy at all, his movements can't be detected through energy flow. This is precisely what gives Maru such a hard time. Every attack from Tsurugi feels sudden and unpredictable. Things get even worse when Tsurugi begins activating the special ability of his sword, Flames. What truly shocks Maru is the realization that Tsurugi can actually manipulate the energy contained within the sword itself. This completely defies Maru's expectations, as he initially believed cursed tools only existed to compensate for Tsurugi's lack of energy. He also understands that cursed tools don't run out of power easily, though their effectiveness still depends on the weapon's rank and the skill of its wielder. Tsurugi's fighting style is radically different from that of ordinary sorcerers, to the point where he nearly impales Maru with a single, almost unavoidable lethal thrust. Even so, Maru manages to block the next strike, but this time, it isn't enough. Tsurugi's blow lands cleanly, sending Maru flying before he crashes helplessly onto the ground, completely defeated. Tsurugi approaches him and calmly states that it would be fine if only Dabura were to leave. He explains that, much like the curse placed on his younger sister, the ritual's effective range shouldn't extend beyond this planet, clearly referencing the 10 Shadows ritual tied to Mahoraga. If Dabura leaves, the ritual would be cancelled and Yuka could survive. However, Maru refuses. He insists that Dabura cannot return to Samuria, because Maru himself is also part of the conditions tied to the curse affecting his sister. Even if only Dabura enters the effective range of the Eskun tribe leader's curse, the risk is still far too great. Technically, there is another solution, using the black rope to nullify the curse. The problem is time. They simply don't have enough of it. Hearing this, Tsurugi challenges Maru to one final duel. If Maru accepts, the rule is simple. The loser must leave the planet. That is the condition of the fight. Tsurugi then poses a blunt question. Does Maru truly consider himself a real warrior? The challenge is reinforced through the activation of Simple Domain. At that moment, Maru is flooded with memories of the past, when he lost control after Dabura failed to fight at full strength against Dula. Back then, he felt that the honor of a warrior had been stained. In silence, Maru apologizes to Dura, finally understanding the pain of loss after what happened to his siblings. Thoughts of losing his remaining comrades begin to weigh heavily on his mind. Suddenly, his third eye seems to speak. It questions his true intention. Wasn't his goal to ensure that no one else would be hurt or killed? Then, with a piercing tone, it challenges the very title of warrior that Maru carries. In the end, Maru accepts everything. He declares that he will no longer hold back. This time, he will fight with lethal intent, even asking Tsurugi not to die too easily. In an instant, Maru's position shifts. His body tilts unnaturally, as if reality itself is being twisted around him. It's unclear whether he has moved or altered the world instead, but one thing is certain. The orientation of gravity changes drastically. This is where Maru's true ability is revealed, the Just World. However, since this technique belongs to twin brothers, its true form is known as Chaos and Order, wielded by Cross and Maru. This power completely disrupts reality, creating oscillations between disorder and balance. It remains unclear who embodies chaos and who represents order, or whether both can wield each aspect to varying degrees. What's even more unsettling is how Maru's third eye speaks as if it's a separate entity. This may be the result of his interaction with the mysterious mineral known as More, which Maru himself admits is unlike anything he has ever encountered. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the battlefield, Dura continues his fight against Mahoraga, and as expected, Mahoraga begins adapting to his attacks. At the same time, the sheer scale of Dabura's power becomes even more apparent. As the author notes, the full range of Dabura's techniques is still unknown. So far, he has only used light-based abilities, while the manifestation of killing intent as tangible mass has yet to appear. Gradually, Dura starts noticing Mahoraga's adaptation pattern. At first, he might have mistaken it for simple regeneration. But there's one crucial detail that can't be ignored. Mahoraga doesn't adapt merely to survive. It adapts to counterattack effectively. In other words, Mahoraga isn't just learning how to live, it's learning how to kill. There's a real possibility that Mahoraga will develop a new technique capable of matching Dabura's speed, especially since Dabura has been portrayed as extremely agile. The problem is that this battle is causing absolute devastation across the city. Even though the city was already in ruins, the current scale of destruction has gone far beyond anything reasonable. At this point, it's also reinforced that Yuka is fated to die once this battle concludes. Honestly, it's incredibly difficult to predict who will emerge victorious. If Kurosa dies and Maru inherits or perfects his abilities, Maru's technique would become far more dangerous than Dabura's. Because of that, it makes sense that Maru could eventually be positioned as the final antagonist, while Dabura serves as a massive obstacle that must be removed first, possibly even by Mahoraga itself. This scenario feels very plausible. Mahoraga killing Dabura doesn't sound far-fetched at all. After that, Yuka dies, and no one remains who can summon Mahoraga. That would eliminate two major power pieces at once, Dabura and Mahoraga. What remains is Maru, wielding harmony and chaos, facing Yuji Itadori, who already possesses multiple techniques, with no clear limit on what else might awaken, including abilities that were previously sealed. What's certain is that this battle is rapidly approaching its climax. The author has stated that this arc will only span around 3 volumes, roughly 25 chapters. That strongly suggests we're entering the final phase of JUJUTSU Kaisen Modulo. From every angle, the atmosphere feels increasingly suffocating, especially since Mahito's true objective remains unknown. There's strong speculation that he's searching for a way to reincarnate after being previously trapped. On top of that, the seals or barriers currently in place may collapse entirely, unable to withstand the clash between these two monsters. On another front, Maru is now fully serious in his confrontation with Tsurugi. To be blunt, Tsurugi's chances of winning feel extremely slim. There are techniques capable of nullifying or weakening other abilities, such as simple domain, often used to counter domain expansion. It's possible Tsurugi might try applying that concept through his sword. Still, his future remains uncertain, especially if Yuka truly dies. Even though they aren't twins and lack an absolute bond, potential side effects could still arise. Ultimately, Tsurugi would need a massive power boost to survive against Maru, unless Kurosu suddenly revives and puts an end to everything. Or, in the most insane and nearly impossible scenario, Yuji himself steps in and interferes with the fight. That's where we'll wrap up this discussion for now. One thing is clear, the situation is completely out of control. Drop your thoughts in the comments about what you think will happen next, and whether Mahoraga and Dabura will truly destroy each other down to the very end. Yash, that's really interesting, Nakama. Thank you so much for sticking with the story till the end. If you have any questions, feel free to write them down in the comments section below. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one.